That's it. If you guys want to contribute to our topics, have any questions, or just want to tell us what an amazing job we're doing, you can reach out to us at 6364252164. Now let's jump right into it. Today's topic is about music, and we have a special guest. Of course, we have Johan here on the show. It's indeed great to have you back.
Mm, yeah, good to be back again. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. It's been
Yeah,
quite a while.
quite a quite a time. Yeah, yeah. Let's get into
So,
it, man.
yeah, for sure. So, for this edition, John and I will be having a discussion regarding music and give you guys a better
Yeah.
viewpoint of this topic. So, before we start the show, I just want to tell John is mainly into music, so all these questions are for him to answer. So, let's begin. So, the
Okay.
first question is now how have different cultures historically
Mm,
influenced music styles and the choice of music or the choice of instruments used over various genres.
mm. And if you see, if you think of it, like music is the most it's a more simple it's kind of art form if you think of it, right? I mean, like it's
Yeah,
just if you have you can have a bunch of people together with one instrument and sing, and that is music, like music is not just something categorized into, just something that you can listen to Spotify, right? It is the
yeah,
most the same thing with music, with dance, and that's why when people like one of the things that dancers always keep telling, right? Like when someone tells that they don't know how to dance, they find it very weird because you don't need to be a professional to dance, right? So same thing
exactly.
with I think with music, you don't have to be some eccentric musician. You don't have to be a pro at an instrument or pro at at singing or anything. You just you need to have a heart to sing out whatever you want. So that's the and that's been there in culture throughout. I mean, even if you look at the history, like if you look at the history of music, it goes back all the way to the BC era. Like if you look at some of the old paintings itself, there are like paintings of there are some they look like instruments. I'm not very sure what the
Yeah,
instruments are called, but they are paintings of someone is playing some sort of an instrument, and they are all dancing. You're seeing a bunch of people who are like circling and they're dancing for that. And so music is the most. I don't think music is something an art form that came like just few centuries ago. It's existed, I think, from the very beginning, right? So
yeah,
I
exactly.
think so what culture has to do with music over the years? I think it's just I think culture like his for me, I think music has been in the map from in the history of mankind from the very beginning. I mean, even if you read the Bible from Genesis onwards itself, you can see how much music is spoken about. And even the biggest book in the Bible is about music, actually. So
Exactly.
so I mean, yeah. So I mean, in relation to like how culture plays a huge role. I mean, even if you look at the impact African Americans have right today in in the American music altogether, the history of how blues music and jazz music came, and rock music came is it's a lot of slavery has a huge connection to how all these genres even came into existence because
Yeah,
African and Americans at that point were not you know even after slavery was abolished, still it was a lot of them, they were finding it difficult to get the best jobs out there. So music was something they could easily go to places and they could earn some money. So that's the genesis of blues. Like blues musician began there only. Like a lot of these like people would just take guitar. Like now blues guitar is associated with electric, but back in the day, like if the origin of blues guitar is acoustic guitar. So they
yeah,
would go around, they would go to the fields and they'll start playing guitar. They would go to some random venues, and people would group up together, watch them play, and they would make some bit of money like that. And that's the like origin of how jazz and so funk has a lot of history because through jazz only and blues itself altogether. And that's how rock music came up. Although when you say rock, it's a lot of the like the British and the European musicians are the ones that come in mind, but African American music has a lot of history to do with it as well. Like if you look at a lot of the the lot of the rhythm, lot of the grooves, I mean, it goes back to like a lot of the the African American community as well. And even if you look at the hip hop genre today, which is one of the most known genres of all time, if you look at that also, like they have even there, the kind of beats that they use, it's all of them have like funk and soul and a lot of jazz music. Only they would take those tracks and they would look at the beat, the beats in that, they would take that and they would remix it, and they come up with their own beat, which is known as sampling now. So
Yeah.
through that, and they would, instead of singing, they would just you know put out their you know the lyrics. And I think the punk subculture has a lot to do with how they, the whole enragement of, the African American community, the whole rage of how, they were getting treated, very rude badly by the American community. So that rage is one of the, plays a huge role, the kind of, the lyrics that they came up with, where they were talking about the injustice faced by the African American community. So a lot of these musicians also, like I think they can, it depends on what kind of the art form, that they're, they just more comfortable towards. If they want to pour their heart out, towards like what they're most comfortable in. Some people, writing is the way they're more comfortable in, so that's how they would pour it out through writing. For some people, naturally, it's through singing, it's through guitar, it's through playing an instrument, that they would immediately connect and they will start, they can put whatever they ever want out. So with the influence of culture, with a lot of the, a lot of people, with the what was going on in the world back in the day, they wanted to put it out, they would put it out through music. So that was like a big genesis of how music has culturally impacted. I mean, even if you look at our Indian history, there was if you look at the history, like sitar and veena are two old instruments that even was influenced, even by the 60s, George Harrison, the Beatles also, they got
Yeah.
heavily inspired by these instruments. But if you look back and listen to the look back how these people were using sitar, how they were playing, that was has played quite an influence in guitar playing itself altogether. Like which a lot of people, while playing, you can figure it out, but it's uh, Beatles really brought that influence of Indian classical into the whole music. Reggae music also had a lot to do with the whole Jamaican culture, all together. So that's why it is what the sometimes the problems that they're facing in the culture, they want to put it out through music. And that's how, when these things blend together, it comes up, ends up with a result, that's very evocative for people. So that's how I think with the relation of how cultural has impacted music, I think just like any art form, some people are just comfortable, talking about the issues, or about praising the culture through this. And so that's the relation.
Of course, you gave a very in-depth analysis into all the various genres. So, of course, technology has evolved over the years. Like we see 1960, and now we see 2024. Like there's a huge, massive difference. Now,
Mm.
how has technology played a very important role in transforming and creation of music and the experience of music as well?
So, I mean, you can literally make music out of your phone today. That's how easy, it's become to, making it's come to making music, right? I mean, if you look back in there was a time there were no electric instruments, right? People were playing acoustic instruments. So
Exactly.
in terms of like technology, improvement, that even there was music was there even before technology. So
Yeah.
I think as technology evolves, every art form also will evolve. I think music also has evolved because of that. I mean, there are a lot of like musicians, like a lot of these blues musicians from the 1920s and 30s. Back then there was no recording, so it was just a recording. In a sense, there was no studio, and like not like a proper like mixers where they had, where they could connect and record. They didn't have that. So like a lot of
Exactly.
these guitar like these blues music that you see, that's still there on Spotify, which are like 20s and 30s. they are not this, it's not sound it's not like some massive sound quality, it is very like it's very noisy, overall. But from that, so it's always like even before technology, music existed. From that to how now the DAWs, that DAW is called. So you have softwares like Pro Tools, Ableton, you have FL Studio, and you have Reaper, and you have a bunch of like studios which are now quite they are very easily accessible also to a lot of people. Now you can literally you have within a decent amount, you can buy equipments to record within your house. You can be a bedroom musician, basically. Now, back in the day, this was it was a luxury, to record music back in the day. So because
Yeah,
it had just come in, so people they didn't have everything to sit in a bedroom. They had to go you know to a proper studio, if they wanted a good quality of music. That can be done today, but nevertheless, despite the fact that you can sit in your bedroom itself and record with affordable gears do matter in the end of the day, right? So which is
exactly.
why a lot of these musicians, why they spend like so much millions into their recording, is because they in the end of the day, there is difference with the quality of output that comes out with 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 a proper studio, with where you have a proper mixer. You have a really strong interface, where you have spent. These are producers that are charging millions of money. And although there is, the reason they're charging millions is because the result, if you look at overall, you won't get that result that easily.
Yeah,
It is very sad, but it is true, like that's why they always say to invest in your career, because you know nobody will discourage you to sit in your room and not to not sit in your room and do music. But the more you invest in your career, the better output you will get as well. But in terms of how technology has impacted, you can create good quality techno now also. And in terms of how, like, how people are listening to music now, that was the day people had to get an LP, and they had to get the vinyl player, and they had to play through that. Cut to
yeah,
how people started using MP3 players, and that was a huge thing, right? Once upon a time, having an MP3 player was, it was equal to having a phone at one point for people. I
yeah.
still remember when I was in fifth, I got a Walkman. And it was like you had to put it through earphones. It didn't even have speakers, so the only way you could listen to it is by plugging in earphones. And that was one way of listening. And cut to now, you don't need an MP3 player. It is, everything is accessible in phone itself, always. I think the streaming platforms has played a huge role, in how techno it has evolved, right? I mean, now there was a time you had to pay and get money. And I think internet, they've all, how internet came in, and that was where you ended up getting free music. I think that ended up becoming the task for a lot of these musicians, because towards the end, when they realized, after internet came in, you're gonna, like, music is accessible, it's free, right? They hated it, but they also had to deal with it. They had to realize, what, okay, fine, this is how it is. Then that's why today Spotify, people not despite recording good quality music and putting it out on Spotify, they are actually not getting like great quality, like they're not going to get much revenue out of those, just out of Spotify and all these and Apple and these streaming platforms itself. They have to uh, figure out other ways of generating revenue. So I think the impact of technology, internet has, like, in terms of revenue generating, it has taken a hit for musicians. They can't make money purely, easily out of the music. They're getting the royalty out of the music. It has been a big hit. Now, I think now after AI has come, I think it's going to, be even more challenging for a lot of the musicians. But I think still, a few years from now, somehow they'll figure out some way or the other to, figure out, how to get over these challenges and still put out, good music that people will also uh, listen to. So yeah.
It's actually crazy. So after what you said, like taking music back in the day, so at one point you actually needed a full music system. Like I'm talking about a keyboard, a guitar to play
Hmm.
different kind of tunes. And now it's just so crazy that everything can just be found on a certain app or certain software.
Hmm.
Like you download and everything is there. You can just use your keys on your laptop, or you can use the
Hmm.
touchpad on your phone.
Yeah.
And some people are creating like really really good music, and I
Hmm.
myself am surprised by the results, because I mean, as I said, it's really crazy coming from a day where you needed music, like actual
Yeah.
music instruments to make music, and now you
Oh,
don't really
yeah.
need it. You
You
don't
don't.
really
Yeah.
need it. Everything
That's
is just
the
there.
Yeah, that's the thing with MIDI, right? MIDI is the Yeah, that's the thing with like MIDI and synth. Like you don't need an actual instrument. You like a lot of these instruments are like the digital. It's digitally available. A lot of these instruments as well. But it's I don't think that's it's a disadvantage for musicians as well. Like there is a lot of like the feeling of playing on a guitar and versus playing it digitally. There is differences. That difference is something you can't take away. But like some of them, they use the synth. They're not trying to be Beethoven's, through using that synth. There is a certain like they use synth to use in one certain part of their music. It's like an additional thing to elevate their music. So that's how they will use it. So for those people, like who want to use all these midis and synths to use as additional layers to elevate the music, for that way I think it's helpful. And also like TikTok and Instagram, I think we need to mention how it's really like been influential, I think, when it comes to music, especially TikTok. I think after for me, I think after Facebook, I think the most revolutionary, thing on social media is TikTok. I think in
TikTok,
terms of
yeah.
content creation, in terms of music, in terms of, what kind of things people like consuming and how people can, make content. I think TikTok in that way has revolutionary. One of the best things TikTok does is music. How so many songs, like there are some songs from 70s and 80s, that get the revival thanks to, TikTok, and a lot of these musicians benefit from it. And because of how they get become a hit in TikTok, you can see how in Spotify also their streams boost up like crazy. so
Exactly.
so in that way, I think, yeah, like because of TikTok and Instagram, that also plays a huge role, I think, in music, how it is involved.
Of course, now we just complete the evolution of music through technology. Now, moving on to the next part. Now, in what ways can music profound emotional responses in listeners? As we know, music is a very powerful means to help release emotions. So, in what ways it can actually do that?
So there was there was like before anything, like instruments plays a huge role in setting up the tone and the atmosphere for what kind of music they wanna play, right? So I think
Yeah,
the one of the best advantages of something like music is it's like you can close your eyes and somewhat like music somewhat visual makes you creates visuals for you. And I think like instruments plays a huge role in setting up that sort of a atmosphere for you to sense the tone, what the song is also going to be. Then there are some musicians who do the exact opposite. They set the tone in a very different way, and then the lyrics come, and it sounds very different from what the music was supposed to turn out as. So so I think that's what's amazing. So that that reverse kind of trick that they do with how like they're setting up the tone in a way, it sounds all positive, but the lyrics are very negative. So that
exactly.
flip is also something very interesting. So I think experimentation plays a huge role in how you can evoke someone. And obviously like songwriting and lyrics, I think for me personally as a musician, this is me personally, I think for me music comes first, then comes the lyrics for me. you know there are some people I know for sure, for them lyrics come first and then comes the music. For me, I don't know, for me it's always been like, for me the music somehow has always come first for me. And but I'll never but for the longest time for me, like if the music was good and the lyrics wasn't, I still used to listen to the music more. But now that has overall changed when you listen to the lyrics. I think lyrics is what now people are that's what will connect to the audience, right? Which is why these the lyrics which have like two three meanings to one certain verse itself. The reason they do that, is so that, to connect to the audience, because they have a certain target, they have a certain people to whom they want to put this music out to. So the moment they say one certain lyric, they know they're trying to say, they're trying to say something else as well. So in that way, they, I think, them trying to connect to the to the audience, a lot of them, uh, with the, with the situation, how everything is going, is going on in the current world. People, it's somewhat, I think sometimes it loses people's mind, and they want to put that
Exactly.
out somehow. I think music, lyrics has played a song, I think that plays a huge role in how they want to sit and structure their songwriting itself. So at that moment, I think, like that's why Beatles became so influential, right? They became like the, what 60s became like a very a generation where people are voicing out, you know and I think that's why the Beatles have played a huge role in, in that. So, I think people have also, people also over the years have realized how they're using it as a, tool to, if it wasn't more no more a tool of, just entertainment. I think music just ended up becoming, a platform where they wanted to, put out a message. There are some musicians who want to entertain, some musicians who want to make a statement. So that so I think, so there's those musicians, you can figure out, these are not people, these are people, there's the reason why they're putting out, some certain amount, but some certain music. So I think, in that way, how it it evokes them is, uh I think at the certain moment, with how the current every the situation goes on, I think at that right time, if they could put out some music that connects to the audience at those certain times, the kind of, with the lyrics, with the tone they set up, I think, the right time also plays a huge role in how sometimes it evokes, I think, for fans. I
Yeah.
think, which is why, a lot of these, like people, one thing like we've heard is like people who are depressed listen to depressed music. It's a weird, but it's not a as weird as it sounds, but it's not a weird thing for them. Yeah,
Yeah.
because when they listen to it, it does, evoke a lot of, emotions for them by listening to it. Because it's like when the singer is, when they're singing those lyrics, the person feels like, they can relate to that person. That's how, and I think that's why, music has become such a huge part of people's life, because what they're having in their mind, and these musicians are really putting it down through the lyrics, and they connect to the audience because they feel like, they're not alone. So that's how also how it plays a huge role.
Exactly. So, moving on now, of course, in the world of music, we have a lot of collaborations like, Eminem and Rihanna, Eminem and Ed Sheeran, Justin Bieber, Nicki Minaj, and
Yeah.
they created absolute bangers of music. So, how do collaborations between artists from different genres or backgrounds create like unique music such as these?
It
because of
can
course they're because of course they're from two different genres. Like we have
mm,
Eminem, who is from hip hop, and take for
mm.
example Rihanna, who's from pop. So how
Yeah.
does that actually work?
See the genesis of every new genre is through experimentation through other previous old genres. So that's
Mhm.
how genres itself are created through its, the influence come from old genres, right? Rock music's influence come from blues music. Hip hop's influences all have a lot to do with, with soul music and funk music. They used that and they came up with it. And also, uh what else, I think, even like, I think blues also has a lot to, do with their influence is also very different. It comes all the way from the street. I think, they were playing
Yeah.
it in the through the roads, and that's how they got their inspiration. And like genre develops because of, blending with other genres. And that's how, that's how music evolves. That's how genres also evolve, right? But the thing with collaboration with musicians, I feel like if it's one musician's vision and another musician comes in, I think if the another musician comes in, as long as their contribution to the music is such that, it is play. There's one for that musician who has the vision. This is how they want their music out, and and they want it in a such a way. But this one certain thing, they feel like they can't do it, and they need another musician to come in and help play that part or sing that part, or rap that part. And when they come in, I feel like whoever is featuring, they're featuring to, as an add-on to elevate, what the musician, they're collaborating with. They
Hmm.
are fulfilling their vision, I feel. Because I feel like if they also come in and they put a lot of their, also input into it, sometimes I feel like that the musician's vision is will clearly fade away sometimes, I feel, because of collaborating with many musicians. There are many musicians who have also got criticism for collaborating with multiple musicians, because the moment you end up playing with so many musicians, your voice is not heard enough sometimes. It becomes
Exactly.
one part. There are other musicians, when they're coming in, your voice becomes like one of the voices, like and that's why that's why a lot of these musicians get criticism for collaborating multiple times. Not every musician, some musicians. But then there are some musicians who are highly collaborative, but the ones who they end up collaborating with, these musicians are not collaborating. The two intents are different. If they want to collaborate with the musicians, to fulfill their vision, it is still that musician's voice. If the intent is, I want to collaborate with him, and him or her, and let's make good music, that's a completely different collaboration, because you have like two different voices that are coming in together and putting out something. So no, but it can be, it can have, the result can be a great output, or maybe not. That depends on the chemistry of the the people, the two people who are collaborating. It also results in how their contribution overall, how they are also able to respect each other's artistry, and how they're able to work on it together. So I think the chemistry plays a huge role in how these this works. But uh, sometimes it just doesn't end up working. But when you see, if you take some musicians who who can take another person's music, or different style, it might sound crazy, but the moment they add in, like even if you take Kanye West, for example, I think he is someone who has revolutionized what you can do in genre blending itself altogether, I feel.
Yeah.
Because he was able to take it's different music, and he was able to put it, and it just, nobody could ever think that you could end up putting music like that. And that's why some musicians are called autiers, because they're just doing something that is so new, and that's the thing about music. I think music also has evolved so much. I think being an auteur in music is also, it's also very difficult. And so with collaborating with musicians, I don't know how much of today create coming up with a new genre itself altogether. And today with some with an art form that's evolved for so many years, it's very difficult. But
Yeah.
it can uh, two completely different genres coming together, as long as there is respect between each artist, and how they're able to structure it in such a way that it all starts making sense. I think it will work out. But music is all about experimentation.
Exactly. So, towards the beginning, when we spoke about technology and music, like we touched upon the idea of AI. Now, it got me thinking. Now, what are some potential benefits as well as negatives that AI could bring to the music industry?
Like I said, internet did that, right? Like in the 90s, when internet came, music ended up becoming so accessible that people, a lot of musicians were really, the Napster put out free music, and so many musicians were suing Napster for putting
Yeah.
out free music. And even though Napster is no more, but still, it's like Spotify has come in, and now the industry has has is working in such a way that music, Spotify has such a global network, that towards the end, people are going to listen to the music on Spotify. And unfortunately, they're not going to make enough money out of it. That was the challenge, in terms of generating revenue. I think internet did take a toll on musicians,
Yeah.
through that. So I think AI, in that way, I think AI is a lot more risky. The problem with AI is, like, AI stops people from thinking, right? And that is the problem. The thing with
Exactly.
AI is you can do so much in AI. You don't even need an instrument. You don't need a studio. Today you don't need a songwriter to come and write the lyrics. You don't need a five, six people to, for the instruments. You just need one computer, today, to make, a full length album. And there was this one musician who did, in US somewhere, but he got sued 2 million or something like that, because of, he used AI to make all his music. And when you listen to his music, it really sounds legit. It sounds like he went to a studio and got a bunch of musicians, and he wrote the lyrics and everything, but it was fully done through AI. And that is, I think AI has blurred the line between, technology and, humans, in terms of how, art is written. So, I think in the future of AI, I think it's almost like it's reached a point you won't be able to differentiate, between AI music and an actual person, who's put effort in putting a music. So I think the challenge is how to, I think musicians will also face is how to differentiate with that. Because today,
Yeah.
it will become very, difficult over the years for them to, because of AI. And like the music will almost sound like, it'll sound like, what, I can make this myself. But if they can make up music which will sound distinctive enough, I think that will be the, trying to be distinctive will be one thing, the task I think musicians will be facing, which is they always face. But I think with AI, I think that will be something they will have to, figure out some way or the other. I think we are in the, our generation, AI has come, with our generation. So that's why, like, people of our people of our generation also, they're like very anti AI, because it's happening in our generation. I think 10 15 years from now, all the teenagers, they live through AI, right? So I think they will be able to understand AI more. The
Yeah.
all the musicians from that generation, whoever will come in, I think they will be, because AI has existed, it's no more a challenge for them. This is how the industry, this is how music is to their eyes. So they will figure out some way or the others, how to put out good music, put out music that will stand out, despite AI being there. So I think the originality is getting blurred out in AI. That is the biggest problem people will facing. But the thing about AI is it's a great tool, but the problem is it's a tool that is misused. Now,
Yeah.
recently Beatles put out music after like 30 years or something like that. 30 40 years later, they have put out a music with one of the earlier members had passed away, and they, through the use of AI, they ended up recording the entire his vocals. And they said it felt like he was in the studio, recording. And and they used AI and recorded one entire his song. And there are people who are using AI in that way, in terms of like, mixing and mastering. A lot of these musicians who cannot afford enough, I think AI has helped them in that way itself. And also I think in terms of like I said, AI is really like helpful in terms of data analysis and everything, right? I think in
Yeah.
that way, I think it will really help musicians in the future, how AI can help them, look at the data analysis, and they can look at how they can also build, after looking at all this. And in that way, I think AI will really be, very helpful. I think, and like, even in there are these some softwares, where you can record through your phone itself, but through AI it will almost sound like you went to a studio and recorded it.
Exactly.
So in these ways, I think AI is a tool that can be very helpful, but the thing is, it's also very dangerous that it can, it'll almost, it's almost like a human being is inside the thing and doing everything, you know but it's a tool that can be very helpful, like in every other industry. I always say AI can be helpful for music as well. It's just the problem is not AI, right? The problem is humans, how humans end up misusing technology. So I think that the challenge is how they will how distinctive they can be despite AI being there. But the advantages are definitely that they can figure it out.
Exactly. So, especially nowadays, like you look at a lot of musicians, like they lack talent in vocals and all of that. And the crazy thing is, AI is just so, I don't know what to say, very accurate in determining like which is missing, and it corrects their vocals. And I think that's what you
Mm.
call auto tune, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so crazy. Like if you see them singing in live and singing in the record, it's like two different things. Like
Two
we are
different
thinking like,
things. Yeah,
yeah, we're like, how did this person make this when the
yeah.
same person is sounding so different? Like it's, I don't know, it's like a massive thing. So of course, yeah, it can be misused, but I mean, hopefully we enter a generation where it is being used for good. Like we have people missing and missing part of the band, and we can use it as the Beatles did. And
Mm.
of course, yeah, it did help a lot of small time music producers generate revenue. So even there's a small music producer, I forget his name. He was being popping off on Instagram, I think Crash Adams or something. I think that's what they call. I think he also did the same thing, but he didn't use AI 100%. It was just like very little, like 15-20%, and the most of it was just his instruments and all of that. And seeing the instruments and vocals and the AI all mixed into one, and he ended up creating very good songs. And I think, yeah, that's definitely a case which you can actually help a lot of
Mm.
people.
Mm.
So, do you have any last takeaways?
Last takeaways when it comes to music. I mean, one thing I can tell is, like I always keep telling, is when it comes to music, you don't have to be a, pro or something in music. Music, the point of music is it's supposed the point of any art form is it's supposed to be a place where you can evoke your emotions, and music is also exactly that. So you don't have to be a Beethoven when you're playing piano. You don't have to be, you don't have to be some opera singer or something like that. You can, so I think, and so if you ever wanna, if you ever wanna sing, you ever wanna play, and you feel like the people will judge you, remember this is an art form that's existed for years before, even, there was a profession called, that profession of music also has existed for hundreds and hundreds of years. So I mean,
Exactly.
music is the most, like, it's one of the most easy form of art form, right? What is music? Just five people can sit together and sing, and that's music. So in
Yeah.
the end of the day, don't I think when it comes to like pursuing music, also a lot of people get discouraged, and unfortunately today, it's very, making money also and out of music has become like insanely, difficult, which is why, people who are pursuing music have a day job and they are doing this. And
Yeah.
once, there are very handful of musicians who end up making, who are, making music purely, out of music. So anyone who wants to like pursue music, it's a very, it's an art form which is, which has existed for so many years, that the competition is so tight that, making money initially will be very difficult. But I think, no, like you need to have, you need to hustle. I think you need to have a passion, to, not think about it financially, but to just gain, some sort of a network that with, 2 3 years later you can make, a decent amount of money. So in
Yeah.
terms of like making a, if you want to pursue music or something like that, don't ever look at it from like a financial, standpoint, because financially you end up looking at, how your music growth has been. You'll never end up, having any, how to put it, any motivation to put good music. So the initial years will be difficult, but just hustle enough, that you can figure it out.
Exactly. Those were very good takeaways. So, with that, that brings us to the end of today's show. A huge thank you to Johan for joining the show and sharing his musical knowledge with us.
Thank you for having me.
And remember, guys, we air on Mondays at 4:30 p.m. That's it. If you guys want to contribute to our topics, have any questions, or just want to tell us what an amazing job we're doing, you can reach out to us at 6364252164. And a huge thank you to our listeners for joining in to this edition of the Reality Bang, your weekly dose of youth power, brought to you by FEBA Online. This is RJ Johan. Hope you have an amazing week, and I'll see you next Monday. God bless you.